What upsets me the most about the Pokemon community and its influencers is just how evil everything has gotten. That we have a compulsive liar and cheater trying to justify lying and cheating in the official competitive scene to steal tens of thousands of dollars in prize money from people, as well as opportunity. That for Blisy, lying comes as naturally as breathing. To get several meta-relevant threats like Calyrex, Urshifu, and the dogs, you need to own and buy Sword and Shield and its DLC. Well, that's just a straight-up lie because you don't have to own any of that to use the Pokemon inside the games. Also, because this is a cheater that actually doesn't play the games legitimately in any capacity, they don't know that you get Urshifu inside of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's DLC. And that's not a bad thing. My point with those videos is that this is not acceptable. To compete in Scarlet and Violet, you should only need to own a Switch and Scarlet and Violet. Well, to compete at full capacity, you only need a Switch and Scarlet and Violet. And by being in the scene longer and playing more games, you get a benefit from that. It's no different than paying extra money for coaching inside of sports. I'm entitled because I think all Pokemon for competition should be catchable in-game. This is literally entitlement. Me. I want this. It should be like this because I want it like this. Even though there's no need or reason for it to be like this. God forbid someone actually has to play the games of the franchise they are competing in when tens of thousands of dollars are on the line. This is life-changing money. This is career-building opportunity. If you are doing a sport or a competition for a living, yes, you need to dedicate everything to it. It becomes a full-time job. So trying to make it a bad thing that competitive Pokemon is a full-time job if you don't cheat is just straight up evil, because this is the baseline for all competition. That if you are not treating your competitive discipline like a full-time job, then you have no right to be elite. You should not stand a chance when it comes to competing for prize money or career. It really is crazy how all you have to do to get 95% of the Pokemon community to crash out is say cheating is wrong, and then they get completely deranged. Friendly reminder to VGC players that are using RNG manipulation to get your Pokemon. It makes them considered not legal. Incorrect. My favorite part about this person is posting zero proof other than Rule 4.3, even though that's all the proof that you need, which specifically doesn't include RNG manipulation. It says external devices to create or modify. That's not what RNG manips do. And then, like, all of these condescending exclamation points while being completely wrong, while just lying and ignoring everything else about the rules. Flashbang warning. So yeah, we have play Pokemon rules. Use of external devices to modify or create items is expressly forbidden. This just kind of shows like any unauthorized software means that that Pokemon is illegal, and there's more to it because we have the Pokemon TOS, which Blisy just can't really do anything about. Always ignores it. Like, okay, cool, so you bring up 4.3, but what about the TOS? Because it immediately makes RNG illegal. Decompose, disassemble, or reverse engineer any part of the service. Also, of course, a Nintendo-based company is not going to allow bots, mods, hacks, or scripts of any kind. So you're not allowed to hack the game to create any kind of software because that makes it illegal, and then, just in case you somehow find a way to weasel around that, reverse engineering also makes those tools illegal. There's no way to make RNG abuse software without decomposing and reverse engineering the game's hidden functions. And then there's also the normal gameplay rule, which has always been in the rules, even going back to 2012. The use of external devices to modify or create items or Pokemon in a player's party is expressly forbidden. Players found to have Pokemon or items that have been tampered with will be disqualified from competition regardless if traded for. Players should only have Pokemon they have raised themselves and items they have received through normal gameplay. So Pokemon and items through normal gameplay. RNG abuse is not normal gameplay, which is why it was completely illegal then, and it's always been completely illegal. And that's why if you contact Pokemon support, they'll tell you RNG abuse is against the rules. I said, hey, can I use RNG tools for the item printer in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? And the direct response to my question about RNG was unauthorized third-party software is not authorized for use. Please see Section 5 of our Terms of Use for more information. So violating the TOS in any way makes the Pokemon illegal, and they say it right here. They're not going to say the tools by name because no gaming company and no authority on rules in any form of competition will say that. If I say, hey, is PK Hex banned? They're not going to acknowledge the cheating program PK Hex. They're going to quote the TOS or Rule 4.3 and say, unauthorized software is expressly forbidden. That includes PK Hex. That's also why RNG abuse tools have always been against the rules. It's not hard to understand unless you're objectively evil, and I've already proven that about Blisy many times over because he lied about Wolf's Raichu. RNG manipulation did not exist during Generation 6's lifetime, and Blisy even admits that in the comments, but not in the video because it destroys the entire premise of the video that, oh, Wolf's 2016 team, you can just RNG it, even though that was impossible for Worlds 2016. And even if Wolf did it, still against the rules, still cheating. And then all these narratives about how it's unfair. $510, unfair for Pokemon. When every other esport, every other sport competition is going to be more expensive. And it's not $90 per Pokemon or $510 being unfair, because in a world where 99% of players weren't cheating in competitive Pokemon, we have a trading economy. None of the top players or any of the cheaters in Pokemon VGC are actually Pokemon fans. They're just scumbags that have no respect for the game in any capacity, so they don't understand how all of these mechanics and all these interactions work, and they don't understand anything about legality or available Pokemon as well. Done many videos showing that, but also kind of ignores like the entire trading economy. So a real fan that's bought Pokemon Sword and Shield, that enjoys playing the games and has gotten really good at Pokemon acquisition, well, they can speedrun an Urshifu in like an hour and a half. And then they could trade that for whatever you want. Get shiny Pokemon, you get other legendary Pokemon. So that's kind of the thing, that if you already own the game, you can use that to your advantage. But if you don't own those games, you're not disadvantaged because, like, alright, go and trade 3 competitive Pokemon for that Urshifu, or a shiny, fully trained Pokemon for that just regular Urshifu that you still have to train yourself. That just makes sense, and that seems completely fair and acceptable. Entitlement isn't a positive for any competitive scene, but rewarding players that have invested more into the games and the franchise is a positive, and it creates a lot more dynamics between all the players that just make the scene more beautiful and more interesting. So yeah, the proven liar and evil dude keeps on lying. Who would have guessed? Here's more to keep proving them wrong. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's go over some other games, like chess. Chess is popping off right now, and it's one of the most popular forms of competition in the entire world, but it's always been a really big deal, and you can find articles how much I spent on becoming a Grandmaster. And that's another thing these brats and losers in the Pokemon community refuse to understand, is like, if you're competing, you are now in an elite level, or if you're trying to become the best, or qualify for Worlds, or win money, which is also why you are stealing if you are cheating, breaking the rules to deprive legitimate players of that prize money. But if you want to be competitive on a tournament level for any game, sport, or esport, you need to put in the time, work, and money to earn it. So here's what happens if you want to become a chess grandmaster. You need private coaching. This guy says, conservatively 60,000 Australian dollars, more like 75,000, but also not just direct private coaching, buying books and magazines and doing a lot of other research. That could be another 40,000 Australian dollars. And that doesn't include travel, which is going to be tens of thousands of more dollars because you have to participate in tournaments and then do consistently well to get your rating up, and then you go to other events, international events. So yeah, if you want to be a grandmaster, the elite of chess, it's going to cost an insane amount of money to get there. But again, that's true of other sports and even esports. There's also non-financial expenses. Of course, there's expenses beyond money. There's also time. I spent tens of thousands of hours on my chess to the point where I earned the Grandmaster title. But there's also time spent on deliberate practice. There's still another 10,000 plus hours spending reading the chess books, often visualizing the games in my head without a board, solving chess puzzles, researching chess base, everything else. Calculation based on me doing this for 2 to 3 hours a day since 2002. And again, that's what the Pokemon community, these millennials and Zoomers that have no life experience, they don't want to work or earn anything in their life, they don't care about anything, they are just pure narcissists. They don't understand what real sacrifice is, the dedication required to be competitive in any discipline. One of the arguments for hacking in Pokemon is that the only thing that matters is what happens in battle, except every competitive game and sport in history debunks that. What happens off the field is as important to influencing what happens on the field. You aren't allowed to dope in sports because your job is taking away from your training. And then people will say, oh, but steroids makes you unnaturally strong, so it's unfair. Except that's completely false, because there's many banned substances that don't give you any physical advantage. It just improves training efficiency and recovery time. Now, the reason why I use chess as an example is because it's really good at exposing ignorance. A lot of people see chess and go, oh, a couple dollar board, it's free on chess.com. I can look up games, I can do like online articles and free research. So yeah, chess is incredibly accessible, except no, to be elite, it shows that it is incredibly complex and expensive, both for time and money. But it's also everything else, like sports. If you want to be an Olympic athlete, you're going to need a job on top of training to become one of the best in your country to represent against the world. Just because you're competing in the Olympics doesn't mean you get a free ride or have any special privilege. There's a series called Day Jobs that shows what Olympic athletes do when they're not training because they need another job to fund, and some of these people are even going to college while having a part-time job while training hard enough and putting in all of that time and work to become an Olympic athlete. And then the argument in Pokemon's like, oh, no one has time to play for a couple hundred hours to become competitive in Pokemon, especially if you have a kid or job or family. No, these are just entitled brats. And it's not just a couple of cherry-picked examples. Most Olympic athletes need a job to fund their Olympic dream, and they're going to be forced into debt because it's very expensive. I found this video, Olympians in Debt. You can watch full thing in the description down below, so you can like not be ignorant like everyone in Pokemon Challenges audience and what these bad actors are creating in their communities. So he says he got $70,000 to $80,000 in debt to become an Olympic snowboarder while also being a plumber on the side. So this dude works as a plumber to put in more work for training to be an Olympic snowboarder and still ends up in debt. And people are going to say, well, yeah, you can make hundreds of thousands or millions as an Olympic athlete. That is the 1%. That is the very lucky, very elite, talented few. That also doesn't mean people like this guy are allowed to use steroids to catch up to them because they don't have the sponsors, or they don't have a rich family to fund their dreams starting from an early age, or have other connections that make it easier for them. No, it's just going to be different for everyone. That doesn't allow you to break the rules. And that is true if you want to be competitive in almost every sport or esport. Pokemon is actually one of the most accessible forms of competition, even if you use these extremely over-exaggerated, dishonest numbers coming from people like Pokemon Challenges and I'm a Blisy. It's still less time and money than any other form of competition. I had this video randomly pop up in my YouTube recommended recently, but I mean, good on the algorithm because it's surprisingly relevant. We restarted our golf career on a $1,500 budget. Now that was for 2 people, but what it means is that it's an extreme challenge, like a content-worthy challenge to start golf on a $750 budget when you're also sharing expenses with another person. And that's just the bare minimum. It's not like, oh, I'm ready to go pro off of that. No, your gear is going to wear out. There's going to be many recurring costs, and that's before you've even entered tournament for the first time with golf. And then when it comes to esports, thousands of dollars more to get into esports than Pokemon, because you're going to need the top-of-the-line gaming rig, or else you're just at a disadvantage if you have less frame rate or less monitor refresh rate and worse peripherals. Like, to be elite, you need to have the best stuff, and that's going to cost more money. And even for Smash Bros, the cost of controllers alone is going to be more than anything it costs to get into competitive Pokemon. So yeah, when we go back to this, again, we can just kind of see how evil the manipulation is from Pokemon Challenges to make this seem like a bad thing. That you need to have a couple of copies of Pokemon games, but if you're competing in Pokemon, you should appreciate and enjoy the franchise. Also, it's the largest franchise in the world, with 20+ million copies being sold for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and Pokemon Sword and Shield, and then, you know, over 15 million copies for a lot of the other games, which means everyone already has the games. So you need to play Pokemon games that you should already own, and it's only 20 to 60 hours of active playtime, I guess, for each game or for each team or something, and it only goes down with experience because breeding is a skill. if you take someone that has a lot of skill in training competitive Pokemon and someone that's never done it before, the person with skill training competitive Pokemon is going to do it much faster, and then in a world without hacked Pokemon and all the cheating that's going on, it means you actually have an advantage from being better at training Pokemon. That's what competition is about. Everything, not only what happens on the field or in battle. And extra time from team changes or meta developments, which again just proves that cheating gives a massive advantage because you're disadvantaging the player following the rules by hundreds of hours of work that is required by the rules and 100% necessary to competitive Pokemon.